You would like to experience living in Thailand, right? So you better be careful what you wish for. One time I was playing Xbox with my son, and we heard the front door open very loudly, like slamming open, and then the toilet door as well. And we went to check, and there was 2 meter of monitor lizards, like a gigantic iguana, sitting there. And I considered grabbing the thing myself and throwing them out until I saw the claws and the nails on that thing. And then it took an army of security guards to get it out of my house.
Hey Frank, hi. So we're here with Rocky, which is very interested in what we're going to have to say today. Philippines, traveling across countries, working across different countries with my dear connection Frank here. I think it's going to be an interesting one. And then how it is the life in the Philippines where mommy is from. Yeah? Okay, let's dive in. Frank Levering is a global entrepreneur and technology leader with more than 20 years experience across marketing, AI, digital transformation, and product innovation. Throughout his career, he has held senior roles at companies including Microsoft, O2, Victoria Industries, and Jayco Taiki Shah, helping businesses modernize operations, scale internationally, and connect technology with real commercial impact. From leading AI-driven automotive innovations in Italy to transforming a cycling brand into a global consumer success story in Asia, Frank has built a reputation for combining technical expertise with strategic thinking. Now based in the Philippines as the founder of Create Agency, he works with international clients across AI deployments, web development, marketing consultancy, and remote workforce solutions. Fluent in multiple languages and holding a patent in automotive treatment systems, Frank brings a unique global perspective shaped by decades of working across Europe and Asia, always focused on innovation, adaptability, and creating real value through technology and customer understanding. Let's start from your early days. I mean, I know you're Dutch, and I also work in Netherlands a number of years, so there's some maybe similarities, and we can align there as well. So, why did you move from the Netherlands? Where did everything start?
Well, it started in '99 when I graduated in e-commerce. It was very early days, at a time where Amazon was still just selling books and making a big loss. I was lucky enough to find a small IT company in the Netherlands selling B2B IT products like printer cartridge, which is very suitable, of course, for e-commerce. And as such, I was the first in Europe to graduate on that subject. And remarkably as well, it was a marketing study, not an IT study. So I managed to combine the two very nicely. And I set myself the target to work for Microsoft eventually. And because this caught so many eyeballs, that opportunity came right away. So I was able to join them as a junior PM. Had a lot of fun launching, Windows 2000, Office 2000, SQL, all the big change products, I would say, because 2000 was a big landmark for Microsoft products, on the B2B side especially. So from there, I sort of wanted to be a PM, not a junior PM, indicated that I wanted to go into mobile, which they encouraged, but there was actually not much going on yet at Microsoft except for Sweden, which was the hotbed for mobility in Microsoft at the time. So they encouraged me actively to go and leave Microsoft. That's always nice when your employer encourages you to leave. But they wanted me to join O2, British Telecom, because they had a very close partnership worldwide. And they were bound to launch Microsoft devices on mobile data networks, which didn't exist yet. So when I arrived, we were just about to launch GPRS, or mobile data on the network. So, of course, as we say in the Netherlands, I fell with my nose in the butter. That's right on the front line, the pioneering side of everything happening in telecom. So I had a glorious year launching GPRS, then became responsible for launching the devices that made GPRS useful. So smartphones, based on Windows, competing with BlackBerry at the time. I think everybody remembers that, except for
I do remember.
the Gen Z.
Yeah. Young people don't know that, right?
It's just iPhone on iPhone, but we
Yeah,
remember
touch.
the time when everybody had different phones.
Yeah, and big ones, right? Huge
That's
ones.
right. That's right. So from there, I took a lot of responsibility on me to deal with the value add of data. So I was trying to think of scenarios where we could demonstrate what the future would look like. So if there's we had a guy in the PSV Eindhoven Stadium, and we would have him press a button, and then the recording would rewind 30 seconds, and that goal that he recorded would then get sent to a server, and within 2-3 minutes you would get an alert on your phone saying somebody has scored in this match. Would you like to download the goal? And then you pay a fictive euro, because we also wanted to demonstrate the payment method, obviously. Not that anybody would pay a euro per goal, but just to show that we could charge it separate from the normal traffic. So I was really in, like a pig in the mud. I'd found my spot. I was doing all the things that just let your creativity run completely wild. We did TV second screen things where there was a game show, and on your phone you could say, fear factor: is this person going to eat the worms? Yes or no? Right? You could play along with the TV, and then you would get credits, and the credits you could go to one store, and you could buy yourself a T-shirt or save up for more.
So we can say Europe was still hot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was the limit on innovation. There was good budget for it as well. We were the first operator in Europe to launch GPRS, but Vodafone was right hot on our heels. Orange was on our heels as well. So basically, we had to show that we were right. We were doing it the right way. But operators were bringing in iMode from Japan, where you had these small little optimized websites. You had Vodafone with Vodafone Live, which was this optimized, beautiful little environment of internet applications almost, very much ahead of its time. But we didn't have not the time, not the budget, those kind of things, but we had full browsers on devices. So our story was, look, we'll optimize a few pages with the hottest news, with, a teletext, the what you have on the TV, if you want the latest news there. But other than that, our garden has endless exits. So in the garden, everything's beautiful. Outside, it might be beautiful, it might be dirty, but you can go anywhere you like. And that also inspired to invest a little bit of money to help people understand their bill coming. So I invented a GPRS counter, because otherwise we were very worried that people would just use it for a month and get a $10,000 bill. Right? They would have no clue what was coming. And in the meantime, these plans the maximum plan was 30 MBs, I think, for 100 euros. At the time, that was like, endless traffic. Who's going to spend 30 MBs? But internally, we were doing gigabytes already, right? Because we were using it as if it was a mini computer. So yeah, quite fun times. Unfortunately, the Dutch subsidiary got sold to venture capitalists, and they were focused on price fighting. Pretty much the exact opposite of what I was doing. I was adding value. They were basically take all the value away and just offer the basics as cheap as possible. So there was no place for me that was obvious. So lucky for me, O2 thought I was a nice asset for them. So they told me, okay, do you want Germany, Ireland, or UK? And I told them, hell no, that's not happening at all. I mean, London was way too expensive for me, and I was worried that I would end up in Slough. I don't know if you know the comedy show The Office, but basically that is literally the office show, The Office. So I didn't fancy living like that at all. So other than that, I like working with the English. I like visiting the UK. I didn't want to live there at all. I love the Irish. I felt it was very isolated in terms of my career. Germany was not part of the dream, let's put it that way. It's very, very similar to Netherlands. Other than that, I'd have to learn the language, which was always tricky for me in high school. Just too much grammar. And I just didn't see that as part of my career. I wanted an adventure towards the US. That was my goal. That was what I was keen on. I left the door open at Microsoft, so I figured that was the route. And I actually had proposed some interesting concepts to Heineken at the time, the beer brand from the Netherlands, doing mobile concepts where, like in Australia, it's New Year first. Then in the partner pubs in Europe, you could virtually celebrate with the guys on the screen. At the same time, the Australians were celebrating the New Year. So you could celebrate New Year 24 times one day, right? So we were trying to do some sort of global rolling celebration. We did Fast Forward Dance Parade while I was still at O2, which is a big Rotterdam dance party with trucks going through the city. We did that with Heineken as the big sponsor. And then we had, like, every truck had its own music. They had their own camera phones, fixed cameras. So you had the live performance, the audience, all the different perspectives from every truck separate. And Heineken loved that. I wanted to continue that. So I had enough material to continue that collaboration on my own and to start my own little company and build out everything that we wanted to do together. And I had many, many more ideas for them as well, like pub games and stuff like that.
How difficult it was to pitch a company like Heineken? I mean, you had a connection there or something.
Well, I never really pitched them. It was sort of, well, Frank, if they're going to kick you out of O2, there's always this that you can do together with us. We will provide you some budget as a joke, right? Not so serious. And then I sort of sent an email saying, how much would that budget be when it got a little bit more serious? And they said, like, the first 3 years, you wouldn't have to worry about other customers. So, okay, well, you know, I might not get rich, but I will certainly entertain myself, and I'm not going to fall over, right? So there's something good to do, something fun to achieve. So I have a good net, a good safety net for myself in case I have to say hard no to O2 and, you know, the corporate life ends there. And that was really the plan. I mean, I had accepted the offer to take some money and leave voluntarily at the venture capitalist, obviously, on the Netherlands side. Didn't accept the O2 offer. I thought that was the end of that. And from there was sort of that set on the Heineken adventure as soon as I was clear to negotiate. And I think 2 days before that happened, they basically came back from O2 saying, how do you feel about Singapore? Didn't see that one coming. I was in China in 99 as a student. Massive cultural difference, obviously. Felt like it was crazy interesting to be there and witness all that. Didn't see myself live in that culture at all. So my former vice president had become the CEO of Asia. He was the one behind the offer. He called me up personally and he said, look, Frank, it's not China. I would like you to come here and help me. So you're going to do me a favor. Basically, we're going to have a 6-month trial period. And at any point in time, during that 6 months, you're not happy, you know exactly when you're going to go home. So you don't have to worry. And that 6 months is going to help me enormously. I will pay your rent. I will take care of your car. You know, everything will be perfectly intact in the Netherlands until you go back. So you don't have to worry about anything. And then I'm making sure it's worth your while, right? We're going to make it fun. Oh, okay. Now, that's very hard to say no to. So, you know, I like to help people. It was a bit of an adventure. So I jumped in there, hopped over there, and basically after 3 weeks, I told him I'm not going anywhere. So I went back home. I canceled my rent, my car, my stuff, cleared up everything, and moved there permanently. So long story short, stayed there for about 10 years. And then a very close friend of mine, from the O2 times, actually was working with me at Microsoft at the time. His sister passed away very, very young and early. And his father insisted that he join the family business. The family business was a top performance cycling brand for bicycle tires. So in the Tour de France, the Giro, those top guys were using their product. So my friend said, I don't care about tires. I don't care about rubber at all. I don't care about the family business. There's nothing I want less. But, you know, there's a lot of pressure behind it because it's the family business, because, you know, all this emotion in the family at the moment. So this is all very sensitive. But this company is stuck in the 80s. They haven't done anything with technology. They don't understand marketing. It's just their passion for racing, right? Their passion for cycling and nothing else. So what am I going to do there? And then he said, look, why don't you come with me? Then with the two of us, we can make this something special. We can make it an adventure. So I said, well, you know, I like the word adventure. I'm always open to an adventure. So yeah, without really seriously considering it, all of a sudden it became a real plan. And we really decided to go for it. I came in as the CTO with a big project to integrate the Thai factory with the Italian home base.
During these moves, in the early days, you already had a family at that time or no?
Oh yes, oh yes. I went first, so I took care of finding a house, make sure we had a car, and when it was settled, I just called the wife saying, "I'm ready, you can come." And she packed the suitcases and she came over. I wouldn't just go and say, "FYI, we're going to Thailand next week." It's something we discussed, that we looked at, and say, "Okay, look, no, we're comfortable here, but this is something new, different, significant increase in, both salary and lifestyle because the money buys more. A good chance for the kids to go to private school, which in Singapore, unaffordable, undoable. So that would be a good chance to go to an American school to prepare for that adventure that was still in my mind at the time. And from there, basically, have a whole new, familiar but different life again. We jumped pretty much head first. My friend was the head of Asia in sales. So we also had to show results. I was in charge of connecting the factory properly on the IT side with reports and everything with Dynamics AX, the Microsoft solution for ERP, to make sure that everything talked together properly, and then get the Italians and the Thai to work together properly. That was a challenge as well.
How did you find Frank? Okay, I have a couple of questions already. How did you find working with Italians? Was it the first time? And maybe we can see some. I want to ask you also about cultural differences, but we can touch on that later.
The Thai and the Italian culture were very big mismatch. Although I think the Thai culture with most cultures is a mismatch. It's just a very unique culture. You need time to understand. And if you don't understand, you can make sensitive mistakes. So that's something to really consider. But the Italians, I find, they're extremely passionate about what they do. They talk with their hands. It can be very easily misinterpreted by people who haven't seen that before. So what we Europeans can recognize as somebody who's really excited about it, they raise their voice and etc. etc. But it appears to an Asian very quickly as somebody very angry, and somebody who loses their cool in public is one of the big things that is a no-no in, for example, Thailand. So Italians struggle a lot. For me, I never really had problem working with them because of that passion, because of that energy they have, the eternal positivity. I would say you hardly ever hear an Italian moan. They wake up singing "O Sole Mio." It's just the truth. These guys are always cheerful. If they're having stress, they're having trouble, you read it all over their faces, but they happily talk about it and they don't hold on to it. They're hardly ever going to die of a heart attack because they're not going to try and hold it all in and take care of everything. They're not shy to ask for help. They communicate clearly. The only thing is that if there's a highway and a small little sneaky road to get somewhere, they love the sneaky little roads, right? The clear and easy path to the solution. Yeah, that's too easy. Italians don't like that.
Thank you for sharing that. I can also recognize so many things there because, I work in the Netherlands on the other hand, and for me, that was the opposite shock there, you know. Um, Yeah, and I used to work also in UK, Germany, other Malta, and a few other countries. I think this is interesting. We can expand on this. I'll tell you my perspective. So, when I went in the Netherlands, I was not prepared for the directness. Of course, that's what everybody always say. But I think also there are like a good side and a bad side. So for me, I start with the good side. So the good side is that yes, working in the Netherlands will take you really like a train, like they say. But the good part is the honesty and trustworthiness. Because I found that when, at least in workplace, people were very honest and they will always tell you what they wanted to tell you, essentially what they thought in their head, which can be also the negative side, right? So after months, I thought, oh, this is very refreshing. There's not much bullshit going on. They will tell you exactly how it is, which is very, very good on the workplace. Someone tell you, okay, I'll be finished with the task at 3 p.m. and most likely you will get it, maybe 3 or 5, but you will get the task compared to maybe in Italy where they might tell you, okay, you're pronto for alle 5, and then at 6 o'clock it's still not done and stuff. So you missed the deadline, no? So that's the good part. Then the bad part was sometimes for the personal stuff where they might surprise you with things. I'll make one example. So one time we went to bike in the countryside, no, sorry, in the seaside. What is the place on the seaside you have, which is nice? Zandvoort? Is it Zandvoort
Transport,
on the
yeah,
train?
sure. Yeah.
Okay, so we took a train, me and my wife, we didn't have the dog yet. We put the bikes on the train, we had our trip, and then we wanted to come back. So we paid for the bike ticket, so we had everything in order. We put the bike on the train, and then the conductor comes out and just says, "No, you cannot put that one on the train." And I said, "Why not? No, 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 you cannot, you cannot." And I started discussing a little bit, and then he told me straight in my face, "You know what you can do? The only thing you should do is go buy bike because you have a bike. Go bike home." And then we were shocked. So how the F this person told me that? And I didn't know what to reply. Then eventually we went to the help point there, and the lady was a little nicer there, and she said that the conductor has the faculty of denying boarding to the train if he considered that the train was too full. Okay, fine, but tell me, no? No. He thought everybody knew about this. So that was super direct, and we thought, shit, look how they tell you things in your face. And that was, I think, the shock. But then there's always again the good and the bad, and it's also interesting to hear your perspective on Italians, because it's true that seeing a problem, the easy solution is not so easy sometimes, right?
No, for sure. But also, as soon as I went abroad, I've always looked at directness as completely natural. As I'm direct and people are direct to me, that's normal. But as soon as you go abroad, you realize that's not normal at all. It becomes a handicap. It becomes something that you need to sort of shape into
Soften,
something
right?
you're aware of.
Yeah.
So now okay, now I'm being direct and now I'm being straight. What's the difference? Right? How far can I push that within normal limits, not Dutch limits? So if you
Yeah.
do something, you need to know. Also, there is such a thing as being too prepared, right? So when I went to Taiwan for the first time, for example, I bought the book. I studied, all the habits and all the details. That was too much. I mean, I only had a couple of days to prepare. So
Right.
all these different customs, all these different cultural differences, it was way too much. But now I'm showing I know a little bit, and when I make a mistake, it looks like I'm doing it on purpose because I know, right? We showed that I studied it. So they were happy with that. They were impressed with that. They liked that. But now I'm breaking the rules, so I'm doing it on purpose, right? The negotiations, it's all about not losing face. So somebody lowers the price, you have to lower the price. You have to get close together, and one moves, the other moves. Well, the greatest advantage you have as a foreigner is that you don't play by those rules. So they
Yeah.
lower the price and you don't move yours,
Yeah.
right? They lower the price again, waiting for you to react, and you just go like, you don't understand how a budget works. My boss says I have $2 million. That's it, right? So you can be at 2.3, but if you don't end up at 2 million, I'm going home, right?
Yeah.
Okay, 2.2. Which
No.
part don't you understand, right? You can't get away with that if you have just politely shown that you understand exactly how the culture works, how you respect their culture, how you try to adjust as a foreigner and against in their country. You can't use any of the tactics anymore. It'd be very
Yeah.
rude, right?
Yeah.
So it is in your advantage to not know sometimes. Also, it is perfectly fine to make mistakes as long as you're very honest about it and willing to apologize. Nobody's gonna hold something against you forever. I remember in Malaysia, in a very serious meeting, we had a report on response times for emergency services, so ambulances, fire department in Kuala Lumpur. You can imagine. So the Minister of Traffic was there, Minister of Telecoms, some real big shots. And one of the big shots was a Muslim lady. So I'm shaking the hands of all these big shots. Everybody's very formal. And naturally, the next person in the row, you stick out your hand, but you're not allowed to touch a Muslim woman. So she pulled back in a bit of a shock as well. I was like, oh, he's trying to touch me. And I
Yeah.
immediately saw what I did wrong. So I was profusely apologizing.
What they call in Italian a gaff, right?
Oh yes, very much so. But the good thing is that, because you immediately acknowledge your mistake, you say, I will never do it again. I learned my lesson. I'm terribly sorry. Just goes without thinking that you go along the road, you shake everybody's hand. At some point, everybody got a bit more acquainted. And I told her as well with a cup of coffee in my hand and said, "You're lucky because in my country I would have kissed you 3 times." And then she was, "Well, I'm really lucky then because my husband would have killed you." So we left it off, and
Yeah,
the tension's completely gone.
yeah,
But I did make sure that after the joke again, I apologized one more time, saying, "Look, I
yeah,
understand that was very sensitive and a shock for you. I'm really sorry to put you in that position. It was a genuine
yeah,
mistake, right?"
yeah.
And that's then the end of it, and nobody will ever mention it again, or it becomes like an ongoing joke that you laugh together. They're not laughing at you; they're laughing with you, which is good for your relationships. There's nothing wrong with that. So here's the guy who wants to touch all the Muslim women. Ha ha ha. Okay, I can deal with that. No problem.
Now you're based in the Philippines. How do you find the culture there for, I mean you've been there for a while, so I guess you got used to. Now from business and life, give us a bit of your view on this.
I gotta tell you, after Thailand, it is so much easier. I found Thailand really difficult. I can tell you one anecdote that is hilarious. It just indicates how much I suffered over there. First of all, it's the language. It's incredibly difficult to learn. There's so many tones. I spent a bit of time in the discotheques when I was younger, different jobs. So my hearing isn't really perfect, especially when it's a bit loud around me. So those tones are really hard for me to hear already. So I stand no chance learning this language properly. But you're gonna have to use hand and feet because I don't speak English. So I lived in this beautiful gated compound with security guards, a service desk, and I traveled a lot. So I tried to use my spare time with the family as much as I could. It's hard work as well. So this was, I think, a Saturday or Sunday morning. I woke up my son a bit early and I said, "Come, we don't get much chance. Let's play a bit of FIFA on the Xbox together." So, which is football, soccer, right? So him and I were on the couch, both still very sleepy, playing a game. And I was accustomed to put the solid door, the front door open, and leave the mosquito door closed. And basically, as we are playing, we hear that mosquito door slam open against the stairs. So as somebody who has to go and rush to the toilet, for example, you would run in and bang that door. And then we also hear the bang in the toilet. So we thought, like, okay, maybe a security guard has diarrhea. We don't know. It would be very rude, but I'd be okay with that. The poor guy, I wouldn't mind. You never know. Or maybe it's my friend who also lives here, who was on the way to visit me. I didn't know. And he has a stomach problem. And
Yes, yeah, I
this
had to
is a
go.
solution. I'm okay with that also. So let's go and investigate, right? So the two of us get up, we go and see. There's 2 meters of monitor lizard in the toilet.
What?
So I ran out of the sewer. It's a very, very big iguana, basically.
Wow.
About 2 meters big. I have the pictures to prove it. I'm not exaggerating.
Shit.
And he had made himself at home. I mean, he was already stinking off the place. He was tearing things apart. So initially I thought I'm going to pick him up and throw him out. Took a second look at the claws, which have really sharp nails. I decided that's not going to work. So, okay, carefully closed the door. I said, okay, let's get a security guard, let them know what's going on. And I'm sure this has happened before. They'll take care of it. So my son goes out, goes to the security guard, and he tells him, monitor lizard, monitor lizard. Okay, Joe. You would think, that's familiar enough. Somebody has used those words before. So the guy signals him okay, shows him that he's making a phone call, and we're waiting for this guy to arrive. Took about half an hour, and then this guy arrived with this typical IT nerd kind of guy, with the spectacles and the little polo shirt, and we're looking at this guy like, what the hell's this? And he says, problem monitor, yes. Problem monitor, no. So we showed him the problem. Now we have a guy who speaks Thai, thank God, who has seen the problem. So he went back outside. He went to talk to the security guard. Said, "What the hell am I doing here? There's not a monitor problem. It's a monitor lizard problem." So then all of a sudden they start to scramble and get things together. And the guys are nice enough. So once they understand you, they'll take care of you.
So you had this giant thing there. How many there were?
An army in my house, 6 guys, who tried to rope that beast.
One? How many were there? Just one or a
There
few?
was just one 2 meter beast
That's
in the
huge.
bathroom, but it took like 6 guys to catch him.
Wow.
Because he's very aggressive, he was very slippery, and it's very tiny space, so that you have to sort of couldn't really get the door fully open because he was blocking it. And then there were like 6 bulky security guards trying to get those very long sticks that they put around the neck because they don't want to come anywhere near. Before they finally caught the guy, there's like 6 guys arguing who could do it best.
A normal day in Thailand in general? I mean, what you experienced? So this was like an exceptional event.
No, I mean, we had a python in the backyard that was about 6, 7 meters long. So when we told them, they took their time. So by the time they arrived, it was gone. It's like, yeah, well, it's not my garden anymore. It's not my problem anymore. So somewhere there's a really, really big python crawling around. And then the neighbor's dogs disappeared the next day. We know why. We know what happened. Right? So all these things are somewhat normalized. I remember going to the management office saying that, hey, you know what, my aircon is not working. So I'm pointing at the air conditioning in their office. And I'm gesturing very clearly, like, I want that clean, right? I mean, it cannot mean anything else. And at some point, this guy arrives. I think, okay, finally, because it was leaking, there was a problem. And he starts to change my light bulbs in the house. Okay, that's useful too. There's a couple of them broken, but what the hell? What's going on? When is he going to do the aircon? And he was done. He left, and nobody ever came for the aircon.
Do you think this was one of those cases of lost in translations, or it's genuinely bad service and they're trying to sell you things you don't need?
There is a little bit of deviousness in the Thais. So a lot of it, I think, is generally miscommunication. Because naturally, I mean, they're paid to help, right? So they might hold a bit of a grudge over that. I don't know, but I don't assume so. I think it's much easier for them also to just call the guy who does the aircon than to send the wrong guy over and cause a problem, right?
Yeah, but between a light bulb and an aircon is just a little bit of difference, right?
With friends who live there, we often talked about they call Thailand the land of the smiles. We often call it the land of fake smiles because they will entertain you. They will pretend that they're happy and smiling, but inside there's no smile. The eyes don't smile, right? In Thailand, if you raise your voice, you can get almost anything done because the embarrassment is too much for them. But when that happens, they're smiling, and it's not a real smile. They want to murder you. So those are things that that they can't really happen. It's very bad. But what you'll see is there is some maliciousness in the Thai when it comes to foreigners who ask for help or ask for things.
Thank you for sharing. And this, of course, is in stark contrast with Philippines, the land of the smiles, on the other hand.
Philippines is very, very happy-go-lucky, right? We don't have much, but we're going to enjoy life to the maximum is the mentality here. It's very complex in the sense that it's very community-driven. So if you don't have to eat today, they will take care of you. There will be rice on your table. They will come by. All the neighbors will bring you something. And a week later, the neighbor sitting at your table going like, you're back on your feet. Where's my food? I'm hungry. You're part of the community, but you also have to play a part.
Right.
There is a lot of well-wishing because if it goes great for you, they sort of side benefit. But there's also a lot of jealousy. You can't do too well because then you might move away and not be part of that culture anymore, that community anymore, and they can't benefit anymore. So you need to sort of stay down at the level where everybody is.
So this can limit success to an extent, like for someone that wants to be successful.
I believe so. I think it's very much, a very precarious balance that for foreigners takes years to understand.
How do you feel about business these days in the Philippines? I think I want to expand on this, and also for young entrepreneurs.
I do very little business here, but the business I've done is usually with people who work for me for projects. And I can tell you, they sometimes exaggerate their skill. So they'll commit to something. They say, yes, I can do it. Then they get shy when they can't. But generally speaking, they're extremely hardworking. If that happens, they will study up in silence and ask other friends for help and find a way to not get exposed. But generally speaking, they're reliable. They work hard. And as long as there's nothing happening to somebody in the family, you can always count on them. If something does happen to the family goes first. No discussion, whatever the consequences. Something you have to accept when you're here. The real business to business stuff with Philippines, I've done a little bit of that. I find them eager to talk, but not so eager to actually make it happen and take action on that as well. You know what I mean? There's always the exploring stage before you sort of jump in something together. They love the exploring stage, but nothing happens.
The hierarchy in business, I know you work different countries, and we take one country, which is, for instance, super hierarchical, let's say Japan, which is probably one of the
Yeah.
most, compared to Philippines. Where do you think things stand?
I think Philippines, it's fairly open. I would compare it to an emerging country in Europe, maybe on the eastern side of Europe, where you basically go and say, if a young entrepreneur has a brilliant idea, and let's say he has a training abroad, so he has a bit of a Western view, he can be extremely successful, right? The times of AI, I think in the Philippines is a massive opportunity for a lot of people who otherwise would never have an opportunity. So the culture is very much like the rich will stay rich and the poor will stay poor. But there is now opportunity to jump that gap. And that opportunity is going to be for young and old. So hierarchy will be out of the window. If you work for San Miguel, that hierarchy is going to be Japanese, man. It's going to be exactly the same, like in all Southeast Asia, right? Your seniority matters. Respect for the elderly is stronger ever here than anywhere else, I think. Also Thailand. But throughout Asia, of course, the respect for the parents is incredibly important, for the parents of the parents. So that part of the culture is there. And like I said, with new technologies, you're going to see young guys breaking through on the business level because they don't need to build a career the traditional way. So this could be, what shall we say?
The new entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Complete break in the limitations of the success of the masses in the Philippines.
Yeah. And we've all seen that, the headlines on, I mean, apart from what's happening now, which maybe we can touch on that later if you want to, the growth in Asia has been strong and in a number of countries especially. And Philippines comes usually in the top 5, maybe even top 3. I know there was this big development with the new airport in Manila, for instance, which I don't know if they're really pushing through. We saw some pictures and they're planning a new massive development for the new airport in Manila. What do you think about this growth? I mean, you mentioned the AI space, and obviously that's happening more or less everywhere. So you recommend people to think, hey, try to consider Philippines if you want to develop something these days or create something new, build a new company. You have opportunities there.
The post-COVID scenario, right, where a lot of Filipinos were working abroad for periods of time and then sending money back to the family. But you're going to realize they're away from their family, which is the most important thing in their life. So after COVID, there was a lot of resistance to go back out again because they had now proven they can do the job perfectly fine remotely. So there's a big opportunity right now, I would say, and it's hard to do truly remote, in my experience. A lot of companies are saying that they can and they will, but they can't. But if you're willing to embrace that and make that work and find a way to optimize that scenario, you can imagine a team where in the Netherlands you won't be able to find a developer anymore. So if you want a good developer in Python at the moment in Europe, that's going to be what, $500 per hour? And he will never ever work for anybody because he can make so much money freelance. And he's probably going to work 20 hours a week because for that kind of money, he doesn't have to work any harder. And, he's probably not going to take much initiative to self-study and improve himself because, life is pretty good the way it is. Over here, you will find a great Python developer for 20 to 35 bucks an hour. Somebody who's willing to commit on a monthly salary to you and be grateful that you give him stability. If you give them a budget to study more and become better or study an extra language, they take it with both hands and they jump right on it. I mean, it's still a different world. So if you have a team that you have to put together, not only can you find the resources, they are sort of the creme de la creme that you want to have on your team. So you might not want to have 10 guys, all eager and young and jumping. But if you have a nicely balanced team with 3 or 4 of those young guys who are happy to chase and put all that energy in, then you're gonna have a pretty great project, I would say, most of the time.
I like what you said now on having a balanced team. And I was just reading a book not too long ago, and they're mapping essentially different behavioral profiles. I don't know if you ever read that one from a Swedish author, saying basically that there are 4 main characteristics of, groups: red, blue, yellow, and green. And they're saying in your team, I will not elaborate on those because it's very complex each ones. But this guy was saying basically in your team you want someone which is a red, which will be essentially fast decision making, someone yellow, which is more creative, also quite fast decision making oriented, and then the blue and the green. The blue is like calm and pragmatic and considering all possible options and evaluating really carefully, and the green is sort of in the middle. So this will make a balanced team. So in your experience, would you agree with this? What tips you can give to our listeners?
Yeah, I did a test like that at Microsoft once with the same colors. Where red was sort of the leadership qualities, and yellow was your collaboration skills. Green was sort of your EQ, and blue was your pragmatic, financial, analytical part. Depending on the project, of course, but generally speaking, if you have a good balance of those personalities, then you have a winner on your hands. Just imagine a football team, right? I mean, or soccer team for the American watchers. If you have, 2 world-class strikers, that is not a harmony in a team. If you have 2, type A super leaders on your team, one better be the striker, and the other better be the goalkeeper, because they need to be as far apart as possible. You can't have those clash because they say opposite things, and the team doesn't know what to do anymore. So you're better off with a team that is built around a very strong central midfield captain, who has that strong voice, who has that leadership ability, because now you're reaching the whole field, and now you're starting to feel like somebody's manning the ship, right? Somebody's holding the helm. And from there you go and say, okay, what do I need? Some impulsive creators, wingers, who can surprise defenders. We don't want to be too predictable, right? You need a good old-fashioned traditional striker, because somebody needs to be there to keep the defenders busy and to bang those passes in, right? So there's a bit of room for tradition as well. And then in the back, you want some experience, not young puppies who are going to be fooled easily by, the veteran strikers and the veteran players who've seen it all before. So all that balance that you expect the football coach to manage is exactly how I build teams for projects. And sometimes the company has half a team or 3/4 of a team, and we supplement. So they just need 2 developers. But what I always do is make sure that I'm a part of it, even if it's only for 1 hour a week for 1 phone call. Not so much to, to meddle or because I want to be self-important. But I want to understand what is asked of the team as a whole, and then be able to protect my guys, but also make sure that I can push them to do their part. So it's always clear what is asked of them. It's always clear what timelines are there. Because when you're part of a virtual team, whether that's mostly remote or mostly on-site, the team has a commitment to deliver quality on time within budget. Right, the 3 most important things for any company. Right, and from internal forces, there will be pressure on your budget. Right, oh damn! I just heard, we had an incident, something broke, our budget just got 5,000 less. Right, happens. The CEO called. He says he has a big presentation a week before our deadline. He asked if he can finish earlier. Right, it happens. Right, the one thing that you can't mess with ever is your quality. Right, that's written in stone. Right, as soon as that suffers, even if that CEO is very insistent, it's like, look, we can give you a ton of stuff, but it's not going to be ready. Right, you can talk about it, you can present a lot of things, we can give you a demo. The real thing is not going to be there because we can't guarantee the quality, and that will be bad for you and for us. Right, and in that sense, that's how we live our life. I always said, of the 3, the timeline is the variable. People don't like to mess with the budget. They don't like surprises. You know, unless they ask for new things, don't mess with the budget. Right? Don't give them a discount after the fact. You get what you deserve already. So the budget is the budget. But there's always going to be surprises in a project, and they express themselves in, okay, we have the surprise now. We looked at it. The impact is we need about a week extra. All right, or this is going to set us back 2 weeks because we've done a week of work for nothing, and we have to do another week to make up for it to get back to where we need to be. All right, the impact 9 out of 10 times can be time, and that is well accepted by everyone. It's easily communicated to everyone, and the impact is painful, but doesn't resonate much longer than the actual time impact. So if it's a week, it hurts for a week, right? If it's a month, it hurts for a month, but after that, you're okay. Most importantly, it hardly ever affects your relationship because you agree something happened and we didn't know. And because we didn't know, we couldn't do anything about it. Now we know. We know the impact. We know how to solve it. Maybe that's one thing to highlight. Very, very important thing that I try to do in the projects. Like whatever happens, eyes forward, right? In hindsight, you do the full review. You learn from your mistakes. You might know better. The customer shut you down, right? You know a better way to build it, and the customer says, "I don't want to hear it." Don't go and build it anyway in your spare time to show off, right? It only feels like you're disobeying him, going against him. It doesn't help anyone, right? Do what you're asked. Do your task. Do what is expected, right? Outperform what is expected, fine, but stay color within the lines. And then at the end, you take your learnings, and you were able to build something much, much better than you asked for. Well, maybe there's an opportunity for you to build something for yourself, a nice little SaaS or a nice little home project that people will pay for, a little plugin for some popular platform, whatever it may be. Maybe you can turn it into money. But if not, the customer's king. It's old-fashioned and still true.
Thank you, Frank. This was amazing business advice, and it shows really that for you, integrity and delivering on time is super important. I totally agree with that. Let's touch upon now another area. You're currently based in the Philippines, and essentially you're set up as a one-man band at the moment, working remotely from the Philippines. What are the biggest challenges or opportunities of working with this setup at the moment?
So when I came here, I brought along 2 customers. And I didn't have those 2 customers 2 weeks before I had to leave. So it was not very hard when I was in Europe to line up customers who want to work with me remotely. And I basically say, I want to hire you as my CMO. Can't do that. Okay, I'll pay less and I'll hire you as my remote CMO. I get all the benefits. I pay much less. And I have the benefit that you're not an employee, but just basically as a consultant, so I can stop at any time as well. So it's nothing but benefits for me. Right? The one thing you might miss is that you can close the door, take a whiteboard, and knock heads together. Have that chemistry in a room, which you do miss on Zoom calls. But I was lucky to bring 2 customers here. The first 3 years that kept us afloat very nicely. And then one of the customers says, no hard feelings, absolutely love working together. But I think we've sort of gotten everything out of this that we can. And I'd like to work with some really young people now to get social media done. That's something where there's still a lot to gain, something where you and I are old men. And you can bring me young people from Philippines. You can bring me young people from Pakistan, from Bangladesh. But there's a perfect opportunity for some young, fresh out of university people to have a job in the Netherlands. And for me to let them run wild and see what they can achieve. So it's a very natural way to say goodbye to each other. I felt very, very honest, very straight. And then you're sort of left with half the income you need to survive. And he was kind enough to give me a month notice, so there's 4 weeks of time to prepare yourself for that. But you don't get new business in 4 weeks. You don't go from leads to signed contracts to actual work. You're 3 to 4 to 6 months down the line easily. So this is a real challenge. And every single time that this happens, that happens always. The projects end. Right, the way we work with a strong project basis, When the project is finished, they might love us to death, but the project's finished, right? Who's going to throw money at that? And they might just say like, hey, that one guy you have, can we make him an offer? We want to keep him. That happens. And yeah, hell yeah. I can't say yes to that myself because I'm the asset that is sold to all the clients. So I can't sell myself to one company anymore, nor will they pay me enough, right? So it's a situation that is very hard to deal with unless you have sort of like a partner in crime who takes care of that. I see something coming, I'm going to fill your pipeline. So you end up, generally speaking, always with 23% bandwidth that you're not using. And on top of that, big gaps in payment that impact your stability if you're not careful, right? I can't spend the money that comes in. I have to tuck it away for times where the customer says goodbye, the project is finished, and I need to sign a new project. Currently, I'm working on a local project, which is unique, but a close friend of mine moved here for a job. And he brings me in because we worked together before. He loves working with me in that marketing role. So he said, you need help, right? So I know just the guy, can you trust me? So the door is wide open. But still, the amount of time and energy it takes to get to work. And once you get to work, it takes up to a month for that first paycheck to come in as well. So that's always the challenge. And one of the things that I've done now to sort of try to break through that, and it's a long shot and it's a creative one, I use that 23% capacity that I have to write books. So I wrote a book about the adoption of AI for small medium enterprise. And I wrote a book specifically about the EU AI Act that kicks in August. The EU AI Act basically requires you to not use high-risk AI solutions in Europe. You're not allowed. The medium-risk ones, and they have very clear definitions for these, you are supposed to have a very clear line of liability inside. As in the AI did something stupid, which human is responsible? Which human has the ability to stop it from doing that and to make sure that the impact is minimized? Which human is in charge of the process that AI follows to get to the results? Right? So AI is used to hire people. How do you make sure it doesn't discriminate on the resumes? Right? The HR guy is not going to be happy with that. No, but the HR guy is not going to be happy to be responsible for that because he has no clue how the AI works. But he better be responsible because if the company is acting racist, he's the first guy to have his head on the chopping block, right, next to the CEO. And rightfully so, let's be honest. Rightfully so. Whether it's an employer or AI, doesn't matter. It's acting on behalf of, as far as I'm concerned, exactly the same thing. So these are very important things. And at the moment you have any kind of business in Europe, as an American company, it's my headquarters in the US, I'm not scared of any of that. Well, too bad. Because the EU is going to punish you with 7% of your turnover if you're not careful. 7% of your turnover, no limit. So if you make $350 million a year, so $50 million you bring into the EU that year. No joke. So it's not child's play. It's very serious. Nobody's prepared, especially American companies. So I work with an American lawyer, a very good one, and also a very AI interested and outgoing personality one, to write the book. We've got the book finished. I've got somebody who's huge in AI governance on the public forums, is like a top 10 influencer, to write the foreword for me. So hopefully that will help to get some more traction and attention to the book as well. I have sent a copy to the lady in charge of the EU AI Act, because we're basically helping people to comply with what she's asking for. So with a bit of luck, she might mention it here and there. And then the idea is that we not just sell the book, because that's nice passive income, but I don't expect much of that. What's most important is that we can now organize one-day events for C-level executives and focused on the US because they need the help the most, I think, but also generally in Europe. And we customize that they tailor make it to what the customer needs. So we'll help them to understand what AI can do. what might be their first project, how you approach selecting that project, preparing your organization for it. But a big chunk of that is while you're doing it, how do you make sure you stay within the lines that Europe has drawn? So how do you make sure you color within the lines at all times? One of the chapters I thought was absolutely brilliant, inspired by the lawyer, is if you comply with Europe, how compliant are you worldwide? Right? So if you follow those rules, you're 80-90% safe. It's one of the strictest rules in the world. And there's funny little details you need to know about Singapore and China and Brazil. And we noted that in the chapter as well. But following the strict rules of Europe, you're pretty much okay for whatever comes at you the rest of the world. So to provide a one-day training, let's say an 8-hour day, where we just provide all the guidance to get your AI solutions on track and out there, while you're fully aware of what the Compliance Act means. We think it's absolutely brilliant for everybody who needs it, and it doesn't have that same lead time. I mean, you can decide on a Wednesday that you want to do this, and we can have that organized by Friday. So I'm gambling that this is going to be in huge demand in the near future, and this is something where I don't have a big sales cycle.
This is a great, useful stuff. Like I love practical stuff myself. Where can people get these books or sign up for this training? I mean, I'll happily link it down below this interview.
The first book is on Amazon. The second book is pending the approval of my co-authors to publish. We're literally holding the hand above the red button. So that will go out very soon. And from there, basically, the URL for the agency will be the URL we use for the one-day masterclasses. So they can reach out to me by mail, by LinkedIn, via the website. We also intend to do part of the recordings on the website. So when we have those sessions, we want to make sure we don't just do one day and be gone. We want to make sure we have tools and the book and materials behind maybe the recording of important sessions that we did with them, so that the customer has materials to use for themselves afterwards as well. For me, what is important that it can't all depend on me. I can't be in the US, I can't be in South America, I can't be in Africa. It needs to be sort of a collective effort once this gains traction. And luckily, I was in the speaking circuit for a long time with GPRS, with O2, with Microsoft, with IDC. So I know many great public speakers in many different countries. So when opportunities arise, it makes sense to go and approach a number of those people and say, hey, you know what, this is now interesting enough to at least make it a paid hobby, right? So take a day off, take the pay from this event instead. It doesn't take much training for these smart people to host that day, because we have experts who will dial in.
Thank you so much, Frank, for sharing these insights. And we'll link down below your new book and the new course you're working on. If we can help, I'll try to help in any way. Looking ahead, what excites you about, the business you do or the AI space? Can be anything. Consulting, living in the Philippines. What excites Frank at the moment?
AI excites me. I'm working with an industrial AI company, which is sort of Industry 4.0, where we're really focused on capturing all the data in every form. So in schematics, in drawings, in PDF files and sketches on yellow Post-its, even in the software, in alarms. We try and capture all the factory data together, and not even the sensors reporting temperature every second, but just the general data of plants, and try and get a clean screenshot of that and allow AI to talk to that base. That would allow you to go and say, I have a problem with this valve. What is different from this valve to the other in my network? And AI can help you truly trouble solve, right? Or if you say, I have an error report on V2214, what the hell is that? And AI can pull that right up, show you the schematic, tell you how to get there in the plant, and then basically say, this has been broken before, this was the problem in the past. If you call this guy, he can tell you all about it. So that the human knowledge is also contextual related to the fact. right? That's sort of what we're trying to achieve, that nothing is ever lost. Somebody retires, most of the human knowledge is captured in the future in that central database of plant knowledge. This, I think, is a life changer for especially the processing industry. So you talk oil and gas, you're talking pharmaceuticals, chemicals, everywhere where you go batch based and the process is central and critical. This is going to be, night and day. It's going to be a world of difference. And there's a reason they're already bringing him to Oman, the CEO, to talk about, bringing new life to all those old fields that got destroyed. Because they believe if they're going to do it, this is the way to do it the fastest way. Capture all the data, digital deployment done, straight away to real life deployment. So this is very exciting stuff, even though it's very technical for most. I will lose sleep over that and be happy about it. On the front end, I was really excited because we have arrived at a point where you can get paid for an idea, almost. My experience, though, we're not quite there yet. So I've had many, many great ideas over the years, even if I'm the one saying so. But usually a couple of years later, I see a big company or a new startup do it and become successful with it. And I just miss my window because I have nowhere to go with it. I'm already in my cozy comfort from the corporate side, and the ideas just get lost. And now that I'm on my own, those funds seem further away than you could ever imagine to do a multi-million-dollar idea. Or I have to give my idea/company away before I even start. So seeing AI reach a point where ideas truly can be executed and monetized, that's super exciting. I'm on top of that. I'm watching that point, waiting for it to arrive.
We do replace people, right? But we don't want to get rid of people because that's also the other theme, right?
I have a very clean look at that. I think AI at this point only really takes away the shitty part of people's jobs. So if you were a student and you were called into the insurance company to do manual input from paper to keyboard, that job doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, okay, it sucks. Right? It was nice as a student to make a bit of money, but it wasn't a fun job, was it?
Or yeah,
Right? If you were in charge of the influencers and you had to organize the photo shoot, you'd spend days with the demanding photographer, a model making noise, you have to go to the toilet every 20 minutes, demanding only a specific mineral water. Now you just do that in your virtual studios and pump out 30 in an hour. I mean, your job just gonna have a lot better whether you like it or not.
yeah,
So yeah, everybody's job will change. I'm convinced of that. 80% of the jobs will have some form of impact from AI. But as long as you're willing to spend more time on the creative, strategic, emotional side of your job, where the human factor is irreplaceable,
yeah.
then it's not a loss, it's a win. And
I like that. Yeah,
the monotone, boring, repetitive part of your job, I happily give that part to AI. Right? I happen to be very
yeah,
good with numbers. Just,
absolutely.
I was born that way. I'm really good with numbers, but I don't like numbers. I find
Oh,
them
no
boring
one
as
likes,
hell.
bro.
I'm not a finance guy. It's not me. Like, just because I'm good at it doesn't mean I want to do them. And I
Yeah,
can let AI take care of that part because I select to. I can say, you know what? I have all this financial responsibility. I will check it all. I will own it and be responsible for it. But the monotone part of actually doing all that work that I don't like, I can find ways to divide my job into what I like, I will do. What I don't like, I will outsource to my AI.
yeah,
And
yeah,
we're lucky at this time where nothing is defined. So if you go to your boss and your manager or whoever it may be and you say, hey, you know what? This is how I've divided my job into automation and creativity and strategy. And this is the part that I do, and this is the part that I let the automation handle. They're going to go and say, okay, that's how this role is now defined.
yeah,
Right? Why would they
yeah,
argue? Because that makes the most of your talent. And if they need to rehire, they might go and say, hey, do we need to shift that balance a bit? Do we know how? Right? Do we let the new person come in and make sure that that person knows how? That makes the
yeah,
most sense.
yeah,
So we're still, as humans, in charge of what role definitions look like.
yeah. And we have to say no to things, Frank, as well, because otherwise we get rid of the creativity, right? The idea part, which we mentioned earlier, which I really like that. And it's like leverage the power of AI to be, let's say, your best glorified assistant possible. That's how I see it.
It's like writing a book. You spend, months and hours of your life writing 80 pages. And then the first thing the person who reads it for the first time goes, "Did you use AI for this?" What the hell? You can't tell AI to write you a book. It doesn't work that way. Hell yes,
Yeah.
I researched everything with AI. And yes, when I was finished, I asked it, what do you hate about my book? Right?
Or you
What
can
was
polish it with
better?
it, or you can
Right?
speech dictate to him, but it's still coming from you.
So in the end, I mean, the fact that AI can play a massive part in getting to a much better result is great, and we're stupid not to use it. But you got to make damn sure that the core of things is still you. Otherwise, what's your value,
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise,
right?
you'll plug yourself to the mainframe and go to sleep. That's it.
And if I literally dictate with prompts to write a book for me, if you prompt similarly, you're gonna end up with the same book. Where's my value then, right?
True, true.
Well, all these
Okay,
things don't make
great.
much sense. You got to use AI the right way. Like I said, do a shit ton of research for me. So I save 3-4 months that you would normally spend just preparing to write a book.
Yeah,
Massive benefit. And then you throw it into Chrome Notebook and just say, here's 50 sources. Give me a great summary. Write me a report. And everything's at your fingertips without you doing any processing. Literally 50 sources I've never seen before, and everything I need for my book is all nicely summarized. And all I then have to do is go and say, okay, indicate for me for each chapter which research, which source makes a lot of sense to refer to. And then I sort of have my building block right in my table of contents without ever touching, the keyboard yet.
yeah,
So AI is
yeah,
phenomenal to start a book. And then
yeah.
you just have to start writing. You actually have to do the work.
For young people, I think, and for you and me, let's say, which we have had experience over the years doing things, we can leverage AI in a great way, in my opinion. But the young people, they think they do literally everything with it. And I think that's the challenge. But how do we help the young people? More education, training, limit the access to AI, forcing them not to use it too much, and in schools especially.
The thing that worries me most is the attention span, right? I mean, if you are going to commit yourself to anything, your attention span can't be TikTok 10 seconds. It can't be. And I see a whole generation that has no patience for anything. So how are you going to learn a real skill? How are you going to go and invest, 10,000 hours to be an expert at anything if you can't last 10 seconds? That's a real barrier they have to overcome, this generation. I see some of it in my kids. They're sort of on the edge. They're 14 and 18. So they're not of that real TikTok generation, but, young enough to get addicted to it as well. I see there is a real risk, and we talk about it, saying, hey, don't get tempted by, living your life 10 seconds at a time, really. You got to be able to commit to a project of a couple of months as well, right? You got to be able to sit through a 1 hour YouTube video to teach you something real. Those things, and the entitlement is not a problem, right? Every AI is going to take our job, so you just give us, everybody gets a standard income. Yeah, no, that's not going to fly. Why? Because the rich won't agree, and the rich determine how it works. So it's that simple. You got to have to work for your money like everybody else. So universal income, great idea. I'd love it. Don't see that happen in our lifetime.
Too much control, centralized. I don't like that personally.
Well, there's downsides and benefits, but if you just go and say like, there's not enough work for everybody, everybody should be able to survive. Those principles I can agree with. So how we're going to actually do those things, we're going to need decades to figure out. So this whole entitlement of the next generation that's coming now, where they just go and say, yeah, I feel like working for a day, maybe a day and a half, and I should make a lot of money. Yeah, you can say those things, but doesn't mean they're going to happen, right? And if you never learn the skill, you're not willing to invest the attention and time it takes to become an expert. what are you going to make of yourself? Where are you going to end up? You're going to end up a generalist with no skills. So they're all basically, supermarket cashiers.
A few videos ago, we had a recording with Andrea, which is the CEO of WordLift. By the way, I recommend watching that one. And he was telling me that there was a report, I think came out in Italy, where essentially younger people, let's say people that are in school these days, don't want to use AI in school. And we
Yeah,
were
I saw that
and we
actually.
were discussing that because from our generation, me and him, we were more or less the same age in our 40s, and we were thinking, oh man, if I had a way to do that one faster in school, I would have grabbed it 20,
Oh, well,
30
yeah.
years ago. No? Oh, so I don't have to do the homework. So there is also the conscious approach of the younger generation to a degree, to then
Absolutely.
not use AI forever, which I thought that was pretty good, right?
Well, that's a good thing as well. There always has to be sort of a counter movement by the generation itself to end up at the place where they need to be, and usually they get there, right? I mean, we turn out all right. People from the 60s turn out all right. There's no generation that fails. They always figure a way. And you can say a couple of generations we feel the environment. Sure, there will things that we succeed in, that we fail at. And as the urgency becomes higher, that becomes that generation's biggest problem. What you can see is if we had AI in our time when we studied, we would have gone, I can learn so much more in so much less time now, right? So imagine the value of my 4 years with this tool in my hands. Whereas students nowadays will just go like, oh, now I need school for half a year and I'm done. Right? It's completely different line of thinking. So you need that counter movement that resists just relying on AI, that resists that big technology influence on what humans are capable of, to get this generation on the rails and in the right place.
Where can people find you these days? What's the best channel to connect with you?
They can use my email address. They can find me on WhatsApp, on Viber with a phone number that you can share. There's a website, it's createagency.com, create with a Q. From there, LinkedIn is a great way to communicate as well. If I don't know the connection, but it looks like a legitimate profile, I always accept.
We'll link all your contacts down below. Great conversation with Frank today. Me and Rocky learn new things. Also about scary iguanas, right? Rocky doesn't like big lizards, but sometimes he chases big animals around. So it was a pleasure having you on, Frank. And I look forward to hearing more of your great new initiatives. Thank you again, and we'll see you
Pleasure was
around.
mine. Thank you so much for your time. Bye, Rocky.
Bye. Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.